Welcome again, folks, to another episode of Dallas Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel. You'll notice that my little name tag is Kansas is undefeated. 2-0, baby. My good friend on the other side of the screen is the beloved Longhorn lover, Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr.
I believe.
Who are we believing in? There's like a list.
Believe.
Cowboys, Longhorns, Buffaloes, Jayhawks.
Believe.
Okay, we got a lot to talk about on this show, brought to you by Window Nation. Let's start out with, before we get into the the golf shirt that Clarence is wearing, the game Clarence went to on Sunday, not Saturday. That was the one in New Jersey between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Football Giants. Candy, call it up for me. Best season opener ever for Cowboys.
Wow.
40-0 over the team's touchdowns. Defensive touchdowns. They made extra points. 7 sacks. 3 turnovers. Daniel Jones looked terrible. Everybody looked great. Cooper Rush got into the game early in the fourth quarter, and the starting quarterback wasn't even hurt. Clarence, have you ever seen, as someone who has covered 78 years of Dallas Cowboys football, have you ever seen a better, more impressive season-opening football game?
Nathan, never, not ever. The Cowboys have. I haven't seen it. It's never happened. That was the biggest blowout victory in team history, biggest season-opening lopsided victory in team history. It's never been done before. And I was just trying to think of the most impressive performance of the weekend. Certainly the 49ers slapped the Pittsburgh Steelers all over the field. Yep. But the Steelers have questions. This was a Giants team that made the playoffs last year, won a playoff game on the road, improved their team, gave the quarterback $40 million, brought in a Pro Bowl tight end to give him some weapons. They had hopes this year. This is a team with legitimate hopes to take the next step, close the gap on the Cowboys and Eagles, and they smothered them, is the words that Michael Parsons used. They just smothered them. They didn't let up 40-0. You know, sometimes teams, you have this shutout, they'll get a score in the fourth quarter. They let the Giants have nothing.
That's pretty hard to do, especially in this day and age of pro football where so many of the rules are designed for points, right? It's so hard to pitch a shutout. And New York really didn't even come close after the first drive. That first drive, they were moving the ball, and then they screwed it up, and then that was it. I mean, that was it for the game. And the whole game, go ahead.
And just going back to the first drive, and to the things they did in the first drive, the Cowboys were prepared for. They tried to do them again on the next drive. The Cowboys shut it down. Yep. So it's not like, if they would have scored in the first drive, it would have been different. No, it wouldn't have been different. The Cowboys shut whatever they did in the first drive. They shut it down. Then they start getting the lead and start getting the turnovers. But the Giants could have run the ball in the first quarter and done more things like that. They shut it down.
The only thing that I looked at when I looked at that game and I wrote it is that I think the Giants aren't that good. They're pretty good. It's a 500 team. They won 9 games last season. They won a playoff game because the playoffs have been expanded to 7 teams because we will buy all things playoffs. Consumers will. But there's like layers in the NFL in contending and being good. Giants aren't really that good. And Dallas, to their credit, did what you should do when you're that much better than your opponent, which is you absolutely destroy them. Saquon Barkley is a really nice running back. Daniel Jones isn't very good. The tight end they added is okay. The defense wasn't very good. It's just an average team, and Dallas killed them. And that's what they should do, because for a long time, Dallas was that team, right? They were that 8-8, 9-7 team. Like, well, they're coming, and they just kind of hovered around that mark. And Dallas, the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, has really made that move up to from here-ish to here. Now, whether or not they're there with San Francisco and Kansas City remains to be seen. But at least on Sunday night, they left, no doubt about it. At least for now, and all this can change, as certainly we saw last night in New York. We'll get to that in a minute. At least for now, Dallas is in that upper tier conversation.
I know that, and I would say that The Giants aren't as bad as they looked. The Cowboys aren't as good as they looked. It's the season opener. Things mushroom. I would also say that, you say the Giants aren't a very good team because they're 9-7. Well, they beat a 13-4 team in the playoffs last year. They beat the Vikings on the road. And they had
No, you're right. They won that game, and they kicked their butt.
Hopes of taking the next step.
Yep.
And the Cowboys just have had a mastery of the Giants. Certainly, Dak Prescott's 11 straight wins. They've won as an organization 12 of the last 13 or something like that in the series or some, So, but what they did in just snuffing them out, it just shows you the defense. And we've talked about the defense. We both wrote a column. They wrote a column on Sunday why this could be the Cowboys' year. Why it's time to believe in the Cowboys, and it's because of this defense. It's because of what you saw, and I know you knew about Michael Parsons, and you knew about the pass rush. You didn't know about Stephon Gilmore.
And he's how about all of them?
But to see him in person and to see what he did, the way coverage tight ends, way he's running around, he did that all camp. And the depth that you saw with the Wanye Thomas and Marquise Bell at safety to go along with those safeties they already have. And they play without Donovan Wilson, who's a ball hawk and a guy that gets turnovers. This defense has a chance to be very, very special.
All right, that leads us into the next topic. Clarence, you have used this term so often over the last 20 years. Doomsday defense. It's not just you. We've all been at times guilty of applying the moniker that was created back in the 70s and the early 80s when the Cowboys defense was their signature. I mean, they did have a doomsday defense with Harvey Martin and Randy White and Ed Jones and all these other guys. And ever since then, we've been trying so hard to say, oh, they're back. They got the defense again. And every now and then we'd see spurts of it. Certainly they had a special defense for one season under Wade Phillips. And every now and then it would kind of come and go. But it hasn't looked as good or as complete as it does right now. And it's certainly in that week one. You mentioned Stephon Gilmore. I wrote him down. Deron Bland had a return for a touchdown for an interception. He looks really good. I don't think we have said enough about Dorrance Armstrong because 2 years ago, the Cowboys were in contract negotiations and had Randy Gregory locked up to a contract extension. Well, it fell apart because of a couple of sentences in the contract. He goes to Denver, and they said, we feel pretty good about Dorrance Armstrong as his replacement. Dorrance had been a nice player at Kansas, and he has developed into a really nice rush end. Maybe not as talented as Randy. Randy was talented, but a really good player. When you look at all these different guys that we saw, other than Stephon Gilmore on Sunday night, who's the one that impressed you the most?
Osa Odigizua.
Yeah, he played really well. You're right, he did.
He had 2 sacks. He had probably his best game as a Cowboy. But that's just it. You can name a number of guys. I mean, Trevon Diggs, the guy who, and then, again, everybody goes crazy about Dak Prescott for the championship game or for the playoff game last year. Stephon Diggs could have made some plays to make a difference in that game. He didn't. And he didn't show physicality on the tight end. He didn't catch an interception. So that's something that's been bothering him all off season. In that loss to San Francisco, he was physical, not the finesse guy, just to catch the picks and make business decisions like Dion. He forced the first interception with a tough hit that was returned for a touchdown. He chased down a receiver and ripped the ball out of his hands for another fumble. I mean, the playmakers on this defense, and the guys who stepped up and who will continue to step up. There's a lot of depth. I keep talking about the depth because you can talk about the stars, but it wasn't just the Michael Parsons. It was Dorrance Armstrong and also Odigizua and those guys also make plays. DeMarcus Lawrence and again the secondary. I think is as deep as any secondary in the league. Just think about last year when the Cowboys lost to the Green Bay Packers and you were without Jordan Lewis and you lose Anthony Brown in that game, and the rookie receiver just kills the Cowboys.
Yep.
And that cornerback position was an issue, and that secondary was an issue for the rest of the season. Now look at that cornerback position opposite Trevon Diggs with Stephon Gilmore, a former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, certainly a candidate for the Hall of Fame whenever he retires. To watch him play and lock down people to go along with Trevon Diggs. He's going to make Diggs better. Then you add Bland. You still haven't gotten Jordan Lewis back. He's coming back. You still haven't gotten Donovan Wilson back, and he's coming back soon. And to go with those safety, the depth of safety, this team has some pieces to be special.
Well, and I'll say this about Trevon Diggs. The thing that he did so well on Sunday night had been one of his big, you mentioned the physicality and all that. And you're right. He last season consistently, when you watch Cowboy games, opponents loved running at his side because he didn't want to do it. He just didn't want to, he was unwilling to do it. And you saw, if you are willing to do it, you don't even have to be great at it, but if you're willing to do it, it will change the way games are called and the way games are played. And we can't say enough about how well the special teams blocked field goal return for a touchdown and then a pick six. That was all in the first quarter, and that completely changed what the Giants even wanted to do. And it totally turned Dallas into, they were going to win the game anyways, but it totally made it one-sided in the sense that, okay, you're down 16 or 14, whatever it was, we're coming after you. And it completely emasculated what the Giants wanted to do. Okay, we've got more to talk about here on Cowboys Overtime, but first, a word from our friends at Window Nation.
Window Nation, the star of window replacement and proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, can help you fill the house this season with savings. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free, and make no payments and pay no interest until 2025. Fill your house for a customized authentic Dallas Cowboys jersey while supplies last. You could even help fill the Cowboys house and win tickets to a game. Visit windownation.com/Cowboys now for details. Call 866-95-NATION. Window Nation, proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right. Thank you very much, Window Nation. Back here on Cowboys Overtime, here on StarTelegram.com. He's Clarence E. Hill Jr. I'm Mac Engel. Okay, I wrote it, and it needs to be said because the Cowboys' defense and special teams were so good, we're not even talking about the quarterback. Now, it needs to be said loudly that the Cowboys played in a driving rainstorm that seems like it lasted all day in the Northeast. Dak Prescott finished with a very pedestrian line, 13 of 24, 143 yards passing, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He was a bus driver in a bus driver game. Clarence, I had a fan on Twitter come out and said, yeah, I'm concerned about the offense. And I'm like, your team just won 40-0 over a division rival on the road, and you're concerned about the offense? All right. What are your concerns about the offense? I mean, they scored. I mean, I realize they didn't score all 40 points, but what the hell? I mean, Tony Pollard had a great game. He went for 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. The run game averaged 4 yards a carry. They scored 3 times. I mean, what are we worried about? What are we doing? Like, what are we doing?
I mean, it's crazy. It's ludicrous, you know, and certainly the notion that people are worried about the offense. And I think how the Cowboys handle the offense tells you everything you need to know about why the offense will be better, why you should be happy that you have a coach that understands the game. And they changed the game plan, number one, before the game because of the rain. They had 2 different game plans. They went with the rain weather game plan. And they didn't use much of the things that they had planned for the game because of the weather and then because of the score. It's 26-0 at halftime. It's 40-0. Why do you need to do anything other than win the game? Don't turn the ball over, win the game. Don't do anything to help the Giants, you know. So there's no reason to be worried about the offense. The Cowboys were smart, okay? They were smart in how they handled it. Dak Prescott didn't turn the ball over in a day when the Giants, you know, had 2 interceptions, a blocked field goal, a fumble. There were 2 other fumbles they had in the game that they didn't get on. You know, so it was a game ripe for turnovers, and the Cowboys didn't turn over. They were smart. They managed the game well. They did what they're supposed to do. They played the game they were asked to play that day. But if you want to look at things to be happy about an offense, Brandon Cooks, 37-yard interception. I mean, not interception, but 37-yard penalty on for interference. He drew another flag for holding. He drew another flag for legal contact. Those are weapons. 155-pound goal line back, okay? Kevontae Turpin, hand the ball off to him at the goal line. you say, why are you doing that? Because you're setting up things for later. They want to get
well, and I was wondering about that. You know, they did some things with Turpin that they talked about last season that they really didn't do because Zeke was on the team and the dynamics are different and you don't know the player as well. Now they do. They gave him some opportunities, but you know, there's only so many plays, there's only so many touches, and the one guy I really wanted to see in real game time. I'm talking quarters 1 through 3 because the fourth quarter was just a race to the end of the game for both teams. Was Deuce Vaughn, and I know we got a little bit, but it wasn't. That felt more like a preseason game. If they're going to be sort of wedded to the idea of Turpin being that, you know, sort of scat back kind of guy, does that mean Vaughn is strictly going to be there for break glass in case of emergency?
No, I don't think you have a guy active and not want to use him. Again, I think that the weather and how the game plan, a lot of things changed and how they wanted to use the offense. There were, you know, there were plays out there where Vaughn was out there with Dak Prescott earlier that, you know, it just didn't go to him. But again, they didn't use half of the stuff they planned to use in the game.
No, you didn't have to.
But talking to Mike McCarthy, you know, just they have weapons. They want to use them. And one thing that we talked about throughout preseason was not forcing big plays, allowing big plays to come to them. The way they're going to allow big plays to come to them is getting the ball to their playmakers, the guys that can make big plays, the Brandon Cooks, the Kawante Turpins, the Deuce Vaughns, those things like that. And one other thing on offense, I think that should be noted because we talked so much about the offensive line in training camp. And David Johnson has a question. Candy's going to bring it up. Candy, can you bring that question up, please? Yes.
Can the offensive line stay free of injuries as they meld together? Valid question because it didn't even happen I mean, they had to juggle guys before the start of even week 1.
It didn't happen, you know, and they had to juggle guys before the game because Tyler Smith didn't play. There's a chance he may not play this week. And I think that Tyler Smith went out for a play and the guy to replace Tyler Smith, Tudo Adoga, went out. But did you have a problem with the offensive line, how they played on Sunday? For all this grief that we talked about in training camp about the defensive line killing them and Michael Parsons killing Tyler Smith, Dak Prescott did not get sacked. There were holes in the running game. You know, you Tony Pollard looked good. The running game, the offensive line had a very good performance, so you should be happy about that. That's something to build on going forward.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, too, you have to remind yourself when you watch a game like this is that this game, we saw it all over week 1 in the NFL. It's kind of a mess because starters aren't playing in the preseason. You're seeing performances that don't add up. Joe Burrow of the Bengals looked awful, becomes the highest paid player in NFL history. The next day he goes out and he's maybe the worst player in NFL history. I mean, everybody, it's just really hard to gauge. So what we saw in week 1, in that game on Sunday night in New York, that was more or less a 2-quarter game. By the middle of the third quarter, everybody involved was their priorities had moved on to week 2. So what we saw in week 1, as encouraging as it is, there's so many great things to feel about. If you're a Cowboys fan, it's going to look a lot different about 7 or 8 weeks. But you take the win. Go ahead.
But you had to get the win. And like there were so many people talking about how great Seattle was. They lost to the Rams. Everybody said, we're tanking. The Rams, you know, don't have anybody. And, you know, so you have these surprising scores out there. But the Cowboys did what they're supposed to do. They took care of business. And now as we look forward to this schedule that somehow has gotten favorable.
Oh, this first 4 weeks looks like a joke now.
This tough schedule. So now you got the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. They should handle the Jets at home. Then you have, and we'll get back to you, then you have the Cardinals. Okay, so they should be.
This is who they've got coming up. Hang on, I wrote this down. This is coming up. So what should have happened, by Monday at 5 o'clock, it looked like the Cowboys were going to host the 1-0 New York Jets with Cowboy killer Aaron Rodgers coming to AT&T Stadium. Well, on the 4th play of his Jets career, Aaron Rodgers blows his Achilles out, and he's out for the season. It stinks. Everybody hates it. The Jets went on to win the game with former first-round pick Zach Wilson bus driving his way to an unlikely win because Bills quarterback Josh Allen loves turning over the football. So now the Cowboys were 3.5-point favorites before Aaron Rodgers suffered that season-ending injury. I can't say this enough. I hate that he suffered it. And I know MetLife Stadium in New Jersey and all these stadiums, which include AT&T Stadium, is getting all kinds of criticism for having sport turf which is better than AstroTurf, but it's still not grass. You said it on Twitter last night. Older players get hurt. Aaron Rodgers is 38, 39 years old. These things happen. Is that injury more likely to happen on sport turf? Yes. But they happen. It stinks. He's out. So Zach Wilson's in. So now the Cowboys in succession will face, Clarence, Daniel Jones of the Giants. Jury's way out on him. He looked pedestrian at best. Zach Wilson. Then the Cardinals. They don't have Kyler Murray because he's still hurt, and the Cardinals hate him. So their starting quarterback is Josh Dobbs. And then after that, the Patriots come to town with a guy who is not Tom Brady, but rather Mac Jones. Cowboys now are 7.5-point favorites over the Jets because Aaron Rodgers is out. But Clarence, I think anybody logically would say Cowboys are looking at potentially a 4-0 start.
4-0 going into the showdown in San Francisco.
It's
going to be crazy.
Clarence, of all those teams that we're looking at, they're going to beat the Jets. Jets defense is pretty good. That roster is pretty good, but Zach Wilson can't play. I have no idea what to expect from the Cardinals. And the Patriots are the Patriots, so maybe I don't know. Those teams that you look at, Clarence,
they played a tough game against the Eagles Sunday, but they're Patriots, and the Cowboys should beat them. I had the Cowboys going 3-1 at best. I thought they may lose to the Jets, but now they have a really good shot to start at 4-0, and you couldn't ask for a better opportunity, a better start to really assert yourself.
No, and it's crazy because we see this time and again, the NFL will, because the teams are so close, one of these teams will sort of squeeze through and pop in an ugly 20-18 win, and some teams just kind of checked out on that particular Sunday, and the game gets going good early for the underdog, and then they get some momentum and some plays are made, and they end up winning. And I'm looking at any of these teams, and Clarence, the only one that I could see that I would say, yeah, because the Jets are going to come. The Jets are going to crash. There's just no way. The one that I think they could get them is maybe New England, maybe.
Well, remember the Cowboys beat Cincinnati last year with Cooper Rush. And we thought, well, you don't know.
Yeah, Cincinnati looked terrible early on. Cincinnati looked terrible.
Yeah, you don't know, and so, but yeah, you have to think the Cowboys, if they get out of their own way, and that's the thing about last night. And again, that same conservative game plan the Cowboys used against the Giants, used against the Jets, because Buffalo wins that game if Josh Allen doesn't lose his mind.
Totally.
The Jets are not winning that game. They're not doing anything on offense to win that game. Okay, they had one lucky TD pass, but they were aided and abetted by 4 turnovers from the quarterback, 3 interceptions and a fumble. You don't have 3 interceptions and a fumble, that it's not even a close game.
I was thinking about this last night. You and I covered the Cowboys game in New York against the Giants several years ago. Maybe the greatest catch in NFL history, the Odell Beckham catch. I couldn't believe it. The more I watch it, the more, because his fingertips caught that ball behind his head when he's falling down, and Brandon Carr's falling on him.
Yeah,
we saw a catch last night in the same stadium. Garrett Wilson coming down with the catch that, in my mind, is in that discussion. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube or Twitter or social Instagram. Find the touchdown catch made by the Jets wide receiver last night from Zach Wilson. It is incredible. Which one's better?
Well, Odell Beckham catch is better. It was longer. You're talking about 30, 40 yards. Catch. One hand. That's better. But I also think it had those gloves. Have you ever put those receivers' gloves on? All that stick them on those gloves.
No, I put
that makes a difference. You put those gloves on, it makes a huge difference. You're not catching with your bare hands.
No, that's true. Okay, let's go on to the last topic. This is the topic. This is the topic Clarence has been dying to talk about. And can we talk about the whole part of it now, Clarence? Your weekend?
About everything.
Okay. So last week, Clarence, who is a proud, distinguished University of Texas alum, whose daughter, by the way, is a cheerleader at Rice, and was at the game where Rice upset crosstown rival Houston on Saturday night. About the same time, his beloved Longhorns upset Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
Upset.
7-point underdog. That's an upset. I think Vegas would call that an upset.
Better team won.
No doubt about it. So Clarence decides, I'm going to go to Tuscaloosa. I'm going to fly to Tuscaloosa, which apparently there was so much air traffic before the game that it was packed. So Clarence goes to the game in Tuscaloosa on Saturday night, gets up the next morning and flies to New Jersey to cover the Cowboys game. Now, I knew this, but I thought, does he want the world to know this? So I'm not going to put it out. I don't say anything. I'm like, okay, we've all done that. Totally get it. And then I'm watching the weather forecast roll in on Sunday in New York. And I'm noticing a lot of our colleagues who plan on going to the Cowboys-Giants game in New Jersey aren't making it. And then at this point, I'm looking at Clarence's timeline on his social media. I'm like, he's not there yet. So why don't you regale us about, forget the game part of it. We'll talk about that in a minute. We'll get that in a second. I want to know about your travel, because I've lived this. Your travel adventure of getting from DFW to Tuscaloosa was easy. Tuscaloosa to New Jersey.
Well, so after the game, a good friend of mine, Daryl Orlando Ledbeck at Atlanta Journal-Constitution, I didn't make him, but I encouraged him to come. Hey, come pick me up in Birmingham, drive me to Tuscaloosa, then we're going to drive back to Atlanta so I get on the plane. And
How far was that drive?
That's 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
We're going to drive back to Atlanta. And so after the game, we get something to eat. We get back to Atlanta, Eastern time zone, it's 4:45. I sleep for 2 hours, make him get up. We drive to the airport, get on my plane.
What did you give him? Because I'm telling you, if I'm your friend doing this, I'm like, brother, you're doing
I
this.
gave him the experience of a lifetime to hang out with me at the Texas game. He got VIP treatment hanging out with me at the Texas game. And I drove, by the way. First of all, he was asleep. I did.
Who cares? Yeah, you drove to the airport.
I drove. Anyway, I bought him a bottle of Crown. How about that?
He's a good man.
But so everything is fine. I have because there's no way you can fly from Tuscaloosa or Birmingham to New York. So I have to go to Atlanta, and to make it cheaper and the cheapest possible, the best flight was to go to JFK from Atlanta and on American. And I get Atlanta, I have to take a connector through Charlotte. And I get to Charlotte fine. So I get to Charlotte fine, no problem. When I get to Charlotte, though, we're getting ready to board our flight, and they load the wheelchair, they load everybody on the plane, and then they make the announcement. There's a ground stop in New York. They're not letting any flights come into New York. They have to slow down the amount of planes around this because there's too many airports. And so there's too many planes and got the weather. So there's just a full ground stop in New York. And they pull everybody off the plane and say, the plane is delayed and we don't know when we will be going to New York. So I'm just trying to not freak out. Just be patient.
Well, I'm curious if you're trying not to freak out, because one of the benefits of getting older is that you freak out less. So was it like, had your brain gone to, oh no, I'm so screwed moments?
No, it just, you try to, as you get older, you try to find solutions. If I can't get there, how I'm going to do this, I'm going to tell the editors all this. What do I say? How do I
spin this? Where was the misunderstanding?
So I'm just there watching the game, but I'm talking to flight attendants, looking at the weather. I'm looking at the weather myself, and I'm saying, and the same thing with the Cowboys. They didn't know anything because I was talking to people from New York, and it was fine, and then it wasn't fine. It was fine, and so it stopped raining, and then it stopped the ground stop, and we finally took off about 3:30. I got to New York about 5.
That's not bad.
Yeah, but I was at JFK. So I had to get to the rental car place and then I had to drive from JFK to Jersey and the New York traffic and getting through the parking lot and all the other stuff. So I'm just, you got the GPS and say, oh, you're going to get there at 7. Then it was 7:30. Then it was 7:50, because of the traffic. But hey, I made it. The Cowboys did me a solid by making a blowout. I didn't have to worry about deadline and overthinking things. And on my tired body, they did me a solid with the blowout win. I'm just telling you that I didn't go to the national championship game twice because of work. and I didn't go until 2005. I didn't go in 2009 because I got to work. I got to be with my kids. I'm not going to enjoy it. And so I said, my kids are in college. This is an opportunity. I probably should have taken an earlier flight. I could have just left Alabama because there was a 5 a.m. flight that may have been better. But I did this because I was something that I wanted to do and it was an experience I wanted to have I haven't really done before.
That's great.
And it was a great experience. Just the stadium, the atmosphere, win or lose. I mean, there was just being there and seeing what Tuscaloosa was like on game day and the crowds and the people and then the for Texas to play as they did, it was one of the highlights I've had as a fan. And see, because I cover the Cowboys, because I cover NFL, I don't have a lot of fan outlets. My only fan outlet is Texas. I don't really have a football team. I don't have a basketball team. I don't have a baseball team. I put all of my rooting interest in Texas.
Well, they hit a home run for you on Saturday night because you said it. We have heard this a long time. Oh, Texas is back. Texas is back. And you're right. Texas isn't back as much as it has arrived because that was, from where I sat, the most impressive game by a Texas team we've seen probably since Colt McCoy's senior year.
Oh, no.
And I'm talking about the quarterback, obviously, Quinn Ewers looks so good. I mean, that first touchdown pass he threw, they should have won this game probably by another.
Oh, they dropped 2 touchdown passes.
Yeah,
they should have been gone.
I mean, it wasn't just that they won; it was the way they won. Now, Alabama's got some issues, but that, irrespective of those issues, if you look at the offensive line play and the front 7 play by Texas, that's the most physical, dominant I've seen them play. And they finally played, in my mind, to the level of, the all 10 stars, 5 stars. They finally look like that kind of college football team. It has been bewildering. And I'm sure for you, it's been, just anguish watching some of these teams over the last 5, 6, 8, 10 years getting, run up and down by lesser talented teams. But and that game on Saturday night, they were the better team. They were the more talented team. That was a team that you would look at and say, that's a team that can win a national.
But as you
doesn't
saw,
mean they will, they can.
But as you saw with Alabama, the quarterback matters. In
Alabama, that poor kid at Alabama is not ready for that. I don't think he will be.
But Alabama has more stars and better recruiting classes than on this roster than Texas had. But the difference at quarterback makes a huge difference.
Huge.
And one thing that Texas struggled with, from the Mac Brown era to the Charlie Strong era and early in the Tom Herman era, was having a talented quarterback. So I think the Texas has the quarterback room finally fixed. You got Quinn Ewers and you got Malik and Murphy and you got Arch Manning coming, and they got a quarterback room where they can feel good about it. And now you got to get the other players to play around them. Yeah, Texas is a more physical team, they're a more talented team, but Texas hadn't done this. In Sark's first year, they had a lot of double-digit leads, but they blew them in the fourth quarter. They blew them in the second half. Lost Oklahoma like that. Lost the teams like that throughout. And so you play as well as you did early in the game. Fourth quarter comes, Alabama scores a touchdown and takes the lead. That place goes crazy.
Was it just a zoo?
You're thinking, here we go again. What is Texas going to do? This team was mentally tough. They dominated the fourth quarter, won by double digits. That's how I know they're right.
Well, I think it's, you don't want to look ahead.
No.
Right? But you got to look ahead because September 30th, the game everybody's going to be talking about, the rivalry that everybody, probably one of the Big 12's greatest rivalry, especially the last 4 or 5 years, undefeated Kansas versus undefeated Texas at DKR. I don't think it's too, like I said, I know it's weeks away, but we got to start thinking about that game because the Jayhawks look pretty good.
Seriously,
7 wins, here we come.
Your quarterback is better than that quarterback. He can run and throw. And Kansas ain't no joke. It's funny. It'd be just like Texas to beat Alabama and lose to Kansas. No.
It totally would.
I like, here we go again. Texas is not bad.
Well, it's funny. I'm watching that game, and the college kids, we see it all the time. On 1 week they're here. Oh, we're going to win. They come with, that's a huge win. So kids partying the fountain in Austin. They're having, this is amazing that they finally did it to be where they should be. And it's coming at some point
Oh, you will have adversity. And so that's the thing about it is, it's just like with the Cowboys, we're talking, and how will they handle success? And don't eat the cheese, as Parcells said. Don't eat the cheese. I didn't like Quinn Ewers smoking a cigar after the game. He challenged Joe Burrow, who did that after a national
Burrow did that, right?
Okay, not after a week 2 win. Okay, you don't need to be smoking cigars and act like you've done something. None of your goals of the season have been accomplished. You won no conference championship. You're not in CFP. You've done nothing. It's just week 2. You don't need to be smoking cigars in the locker room. Hopefully, they enjoyed it one night. They get it out of the way, and they can refocus for powerful Wyoming this weekend.
Hey, Wyoming took care of business against Texas Tech. You know who's not taking care of business? I'm going to bring this up real quick. Clarence, I haven't written about this yet because I've virtually written and said the same thing for the last however many years. We talk about do you believe? Do you believe the consistency of Texas A&M football?
Yeah. You mean the inconsistency?
No. There's nothing inconsistent about it. This is consistent. The only thing that's inconsistent, the only thing that's even more, it's just they've given a coach and a program, not just a coach. It'd be unfair to say it's just Jimbo. They've given a program. That university has given a program every resource, every tool, every toy, every dollar that could be handed to have a successful football program. And I'm not talking about, we went 9-3 this year. I'm talking 10, 11, 12. And they come up last week. They've got 5-star players all over the field against Miami. Now, I'll say this, A&M looks like it might have a quarterback this time. I don't know how good, but better than they've been. But the defense gives up like 150. I mean, they and Miami looks better. But Clarence, I know they got the season to play out. What could you possibly do if you're Texas A&M? You're in the 5th year of Jimbo football. What do? You hired a national championship winning coach, gave him $1 trillion, gave him everything, and the results are still like, if you're A&M and you're looking at your future, like you're locked into 7 more. You're locked into a $70 million buyout. $70 million.
Yeah, his buyout is crazy.
Guaranteed.
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do.
So you just ride it out for another 2 years?
Pray and hope. Another Aggie joke, write yourself.
Okay, you asked me to keep track of this. I can do it. So last week we were talking about. Last week, Clarence picked the Cowboys to win and to cover. So that means he's 2-0. I picked the Cowboys to win and not cover, which means I am a disgusting 1-1. Cowboys are 7.5-point favorites against the now Aaron Rodgers less Jets. Clarence, who do you like against the spread? And obviously, I know the answer. Bring it.
Cowboys both ways. They're going to
totally agree. All right, this has been too long, but a lot of fun as always. Clarence, celebrate your win. Don't celebrate just yet with a cigar. Wait until the Longhorns squeak out that 2-point win in overtime against Kansas. For all of your Cowboys coverage needs and everything else, be sure to follow us on StarTelegram.com. Till next week, I'm Matt Kingle. He's Clarence Hill. Catch you later.